another way to prove that you are not an idiot is not to behave as one. Because sometimes we give inordinate credibility to certain people who have rejected us, and we make it look like their rejection was true. So when you properly analyze who is rejecting you, who is calling you unsuitable, who is saying you are not good for your assignment, who is saying that you can't scale up, that people like you cannot scale up, what do they even know about you? You are still trying to discover yourself. Now somebody has met you within 1 week, they think they know you, and that becomes a raw material to process your identity. And many times people accept it, because you see, once you accept, it begins with thought and meditation. Once you take seriously certain labels enough to meditate on it, somehow life has a way of bringing about some manifestations that might make you believe certain labels that people gave you. That's why they called you an idiot. If you're not an idiot truly, it's not, but don't reply them. If you want to use prophetic declaration to cancel the negative effect of that word, that is fine. But you see that another way to prove that you are not an idiot is not to behave as one. Because sometimes we give inordinate credibility to certain people who have rejected us, and we make it look like their rejection was true. One day, somebody said something very sympathetic. As a human being, sometimes I want to use my human reasoning to put myself in the shoes of Jesus. Somebody rises up one day and gives an authoritative description out of ignorance that nothing good has ever come out of Nazareth. Imagine Jesus believing that. And I love the Bible. He would have said how God anointed Jesus with the Holy Ghost and with power. There was a reason why they added Nazareth there. How God anointed Jesus of Nazareth. How God anointed this same Jesus of Nazareth, that people said that nothing good ever comes out of Nazareth. Nathaniel. Who is Nathaniel? Who are the Nathaniels in your life whose words and rejection have formed your ideology? A sin you committed doesn't mean you are the sin. Somebody now uses one sin you committed and now calls you by the name of that sin. And because of course you committed the sin, you believe them. How God treats people a lot of times, because we don't have a high priest who is not familiar with our weaknesses. So even when we sin, God tries to separate the sin from the identity of the person that sinned. God deals with the sin as a separate entity and deals with you as a separate entity. Paul got a report that there were abuses in the Corinthian church. He got a report for which he had to write them a letter, an epistle, because it was the Corinthian church that somebody was sleeping with their fathers. Corinthian church, there was abuse of spiritual gifts. Corinthian church, women were not subject to their husbands. So Paul had to write them a letter. In fact, Corinthian church, people were divorcing and marrying and remarrying and all of those stuff. Now, when Paul started writing to the Corinthian church, he first of all maintained their name. He didn't call them by the name of what they were doing. In fact, every address he made on the reports he got was to first of all renew their consciousness of their real identity, so that based on who they are, they will now know that the things that they are committing is not who they are. You may have made one or two mistakes. The reason for which they labeled you, whatever they labeled you, might be true or is actually true. Committed fornication, committed adultery, you did abortion, somebody's side chick. What they said about you may have been true. You see now that what they said about you is not you, even though the event that made them to give you that label may have happened.